Good evening, everybody. We are going to be talking about HBCUs, UNCF, and the UNCF Portfolio Project. But before we get started, I do have a video. But first, Dr. Thomas, before he has to leave us, he is going to talk about his HBCU experience. He is what we call in the HBCU world a Morehouse brother. Morehouse man, Morehouse brother. So Dr. Thomas, if you could share your experience before you leave us.
Yeah, I just want to do a pulse check. I know Kendra's alive. Is Carolee Godinez, are you alive? Are you in there? And Nell?
Hi.
Okay, good. Because, I got to say, I'm still a little bit of a amen person. So when I say something, I'm still looking for eyes or hearing like someone try to say amen or something. So can I just get at the start, can I just get a real quick amen?
Amen.
Thank you. No, I didn't say anything amen worthy yet. Okay. All right. The praise check went down fast. Okay. So I went to Morehouse College, but I wanted to tell you quickly that first, I'm a Kaiser Permanente physician. So I'm on the committee organizing this. And I did not plan on becoming a physician. I planned to become an astronaut. Actually, I wanted to be, I was like into like astronomy. And so when I went to decide where I was gonna go to college, I was gonna go study astronomy at University of Michigan, because I grew up in Michigan. And I was just sharing with Dallas that I drove down to talk to the minority affairs director and asked him why I should go to Michigan instead of Morehouse. And he's like, no, you should go to Morehouse. So I ended up just following that advice. And the reason my parents actually encouraged it is because my mom, I didn't mention Dallas, she grew up with her parents at Claflin College, or Claflin University, which is in Orangeburg, South Carolina. So my mom basically grew up around there. And so she didn't stay at an HBCU because like it was kind of too close to home. Her mom and dad worked at the campus, but she knew the experience. And so she knew that me wanting to go into the science, astronomy at the time, she thought, you're gonna get what you need if you, as a Black man, you go to a Black school. And she couldn't have been more right. I mean, I changed my major to biology because I saw Black people in medicine. I never liked doctors because I thought they were all white and rich and arrogant. And I didn't think that they had anything to do with Black community. And my parents were very much into the struggle of Black people. So when I got to Morehouse, I saw that was very different. And there were, people into our community. And that's where I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna apply my science, my love for science, and just in a different way. And I'm so glad that I did that. So that's my story. I don't know if y'all have any questions real quick, but.
Do you have any regrets going to a HBCU?
Not a one. When I went to medical school, I went back to Michigan. I had a Russian lab classmate ask me why I went to an HBCU. He was, we were dissecting a cadaver together, and I was like, you just don't understand. I remember going back one summer before that to like one of my high school graduations, and my AP English teacher, Dr. Graber, was like, you went to Morehouse? Why did you go to a Black school? And I'm just like, wow. Yeah, I mean, people were just ignorant, but I can't say enough that I have no regrets, because I would not have the experience of walking into a biology classroom and, hey, Lizo, Lizo, I'm not even supposed to be in here, but I had to like stop in because I said, this is like family, where there's like, so I was one time I was on campus and I walked into I was walking, not one time my parents were visiting me at Morehouse, and my dad was walking with me into my classroom. My mom was there too, but my dad spoke up, and he's like, this building is named after 3 Black scientists. We're walking to your classroom past these three Black men, these photos of three Black men. They said, this is why we want you to go to Morehouse, because you would have never had this experience at a white school like where we teach. And so that was really it. You know, I had Black people who had no intrinsic, implicit biases against me. They all knew that I could do it, and they all knew that sometimes I needed a little nudging, a little tough love, a little bit of, you know, wake up, you know, like Kendra, you got a little bit of that before we got on. So can I get an amen?
Amen.
Amen.
Oh, okay. I still think I didn't reach everybody in the audience, but that's okay. All right, so that's my story. I'm sticking with it.
Thank you so much for sharing it. Thanks for coming by to say hello. And thank you for making sure that UNCF and HBCUs were represented during these sessions. So everyone, my name is Dallas Richardson, and I am, well, I don't know if my age matters, but I'm 26 years old and I work for UNCF, the United Negro College Fund. And today we will be talking about HBCUs. We will be talking about UNCF and what I do, and also the UNCF Portfolio Project. So I'm not sure, I see that everyone has their cameras off, which is totally fine if that's what you're comfortable with. But I would like to know if you all are going to talk back to me today, because I want to have a pulse of the room. If you guys are going to be quiet, that's fine. I guess I just want to know ahead of time. But if you all can come off mute, just share your name and what grade you're in and what major you're interested in, just so that I can make sure I know who my audience is exactly. So Kendra, if you don't mind sharing first.
Yeah, can I actually skip really quick? I'm typing you something in the chat.
Of course, no problem. Who else feels comfortable with sharing? Okay. Oh, we can't hear you.
I'm Paul. I have a background in chemistry. I've already completed grad school and undergrad. But if I do go back to school again, maybe I'll consider an HBCU for another postdoc or something, right? Or a teaching position potentially. So that's that. So all right, now I'll call on Carolee, I guess. Carolee, are you there?
Hi, my name is Kareli, and I'm a senior, and I want to be a dentist.
Nice to meet you. You said you want to be a dentist, okay?
Yes.
And what grade are you in?
12.
12, awesome. So you've been applying to some schools this year, or you've already been accepted into some schools?
Yeah, so I applied for a community college.
Nice. Awesome, awesome. And before we go any further, I just want to be clear that UNCF and HBCUs are open for anybody, any race, any ethnicity. We represent everything. With UNCF, there's scholarships available for everybody. With HBCUs, you can attend HBCUs no matter who you are, no matter your race. It's just like a regular college that you can apply to. HBCUs is not strictly for African-American students, and neither is UNCF. I just wanted to put that out there for the room. Anyone else feel comfortable sharing? Jasmine, Nell. Okay, well, no problem. If you all want to write it in the chat, you can do that as well. So we're just gonna get started with the presentation. Mr. Paul is gonna play a video for us that is a TED Talk. I love TED Talks. And it is about HBCUs, and it's about what they mean and what they stand for, just so we can get a little bit more background information about what it is and who can attend.
What does Martin Luther King Jr., Booker T. Washington, Langston Hughes, Oprah Winfrey, W.E.B. Du Bois, what do they all have in common? They all attended an HBCU. At the age of 18, I left a small town in rural North Carolina to attend a college that was part of a category called Historically Black Colleges and Universities, or HBCUs. The higher education system in the United States is the best, and it's the most diverse in the entire world. There is a veritable smorgasbord for anyone interested in getting a college degree. HBCUs are institutions that were established prior to 1964 for the express purpose of educating African Americans. Today, they enroll only about 10% of all African Americans in the United States, but they account for almost 20% of African American college graduates. The most recent data indicate that HBCUs have a $10.2 billion economic impact on this nation's economy. I want you to think about this for a moment. More than 50% of this nation's Black public school teachers and 70% of this nation's Black dentists are products of HBCUs. Historically, these institutions have admitted students of all races, and now almost 40% are other than African American. These institutions are now some of the most diverse in this country. I ask you, what is the HBCU experience? These were institutions that were created with a very clear educational objective: to educate men and women for the purpose of helping others. The educational ethos included, among other things, that an education not oriented towards service and justice was incomplete. Just look, for example, at the motto of some of these great universities: Winston-Salem State University, enter to learn and depart to serve, or North Carolina Central University's truth and service. HBCUs have strived to be driven by something more than the market economy. There has been the vision that a university would be an inescapable social force for good. This has attracted a cadre of faculty, staff, and administrators to these institutions who came because of a strong sense of mission and providing an excellent educational experience to those who had been denied access because of racial, social, cultural, or economic barriers. They have been driven by the fundamental belief that all of our citizens should have access to a higher education if they so desired. HBCUs have a long history of educating low-income and underrepresented students. These institutions have created a different educational experience, one that alumni often refer to as a culture of caring. A hospital study found that patients reported a better experience if a nurse had given them a warm blanket prior to surgery. I submit to you that HBCUs are the warm blankets of our higher education system. I want to tell you just a minute about Fred Powell, a former student and mentee, is a classic example of the power of the HBCU experience. Fred was told by his high school guidance counselors that he wasn't college material and that he should at best consider applying to a community college. Fred attended North Carolina Central University because no other university would accept him. He was told that his test scores were too low. They told him he could never be successful in college. Fred credits the mentoring from the faculty for giving him the confidence to be able to excel academically. I am so proud to tell you that I talked to Fred the other day, and Fred just received his MD and PhD from Boston University School of Medicine and is currently chief resident of anesthesiology at Boston Medical Center. Creating a high-touch environment and a commitment to mentoring students is so much a part of the HBCU experience. The approach has always been one of focusing in on strengths, objecting to those who would use labels of deficit, disadvantage, and at risk. There are thousands of Fred Powells out there, students all across this country, achieving students from low-income families who desperately want to earn a four-year degree. Many never actually set foot on a college campus because of social cultural factors, which include family obligations or simply just getting tripped up by those complicated FAFSA forms. Many are overwhelmed because they don't want to or don't know how to ask for help. Things spiral out of control, and before they know that, they're back at home resentful, demoralized, and oftentimes in debt. They had no one at that institution to give them a warm blanket. Okay, so far so good, guys. You had the test. Let's recap. What is the HBCU experience? A culture of caring, preparing students for a life of service with an education towards social justice, a high-touch educational environment, admissions policies centered on providing access to those who had traditionally been denied. I like it. Great. Where do we go from here? What's next for HBCUs? The high-touch, caring environment provides the perfect platform for moving into a space of innovation, creativity, and design thinking in the mold of George Washington Carver, an HBCU professor and one of the greatest scientists of all time. It was a strong sense of purpose and focused mission of creating a better world that was the driving force behind Dr. Carver's work. We must today begin to prepare and develop students who are embracing the velocity of change and helping us find ways and quickly adapting to it. Most of us would prefer to live in a world where there are clear rules about what predicts success in our lives and in business. The rapid change in technology and the disruptive forces in higher education have punctured that myth. Yet that doesn't mean that models of inspiration don't exist. HBCUs are one of them. The innovation and change surrounding HBCUs must be centered around several key areas that will improve student success and prepare them for the ever-changing and fast-paced world. The design of a new curriculum that includes competency-based education. Higher education must transform itself rapidly to this global, digital, technology-driven, and knowledge-based world. The next disruption in higher education will be competency-based education. What you can do will be more important than your degree. A new faculty and academic business model. As disruption has swept through most of higher education, the faculty model in traditional institutions has remained unchanged for the past 100 years. Yet the tension between full-time and adjunct faculty represents a threat, but yet a challenge for us to create new faculty models for the future. creating living and learning centers that are embedded in cultural and historical relevance. The changing demographics in the United States will require universities to create a physical presence that will clearly demonstrate that they support and uplift diversity. Then new pedagogical approaches for underserved populations. What are the cognitive, social, emotional challenges of students who are members of these groups? We must invest in new technologies that will allow us to understand learning styles and design courses to improve learning and student outcomes for underserved groups. A comprehensive program for the growing adult learner student. Non-traditional students are the fastest growing population, and they will demand, and there is a need that we develop programs that are hybrid, online, and fast-tracked. New wave is coming, and we must prepare for that. They will demand that from us. And lastly, we must create new and meaningful partnerships with our alumni, with local businesses, communities, government, and private industry. What we want to do is hopefully get businesses to incentivize degree completion by sharing with tuition and creating professional development dollars that will allow an individual to reduce the personal cost of obtaining a college degree. And as the future of higher education remains so uncertain and disruptive, I am encouraged by those institutions like HBCUs who are mission-driven. During the past 20 years, the higher education system in this country has become increasingly more stratified. Most students from upper-class families do well, while those students from middle and low-income families struggle to get into college and struggle to complete their degrees. And it is hard for me to imagine how this nation can regain its global competitiveness or improve its economic mobility without HBCUs who are committed to reversing this disturbing trend. A large part of the solution lies in the core of the HBCU experience. To take large numbers of highly motivated middle and lower socioeconomic students and give them the tools to become successful professionals. Thank you.
So hopefully I still have your attention. I know that might have been a little bit long, but now I'm going to go into my presentation. I'm going to talk about why an HBCU, just recapping what the video was talking about. I went to Bennett College in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I'm going to be showing you all where that is on the map as well. So let me pull up my presentation. Okay, so one reason why people choose an HBCU is the academics. Just like other universities, there are professors that come from all over. The 101 HBCUs that are represented is 3% of the country's, is 3% of the colleges in the country. But the education is 10% of African-American students and 20% of African Americans in the STEM fields. So a lot of students go to HBCUs for the academic purposes. There are, just also a recap from the video, there are 101 HBCUs, and UNCF represents 37 of those HBCUs. So when I start talking about UNCF, I'll talk about what it means to be an HBCU represented with UNCF. That means that UNCF sponsors 37 of those 101 universities. So another reason why people choose HBCUs are the culture. It's the culture. A lot of times students are able to adapt and just feel a stronger connection with their heritage. Being on a campus with people that look like you, being on a campus with people that have the same lifestyle as you or even different lifestyle. I'm from Seattle, Washington, born and raised, and I went to Bennett College in Greensboro, North Carolina. So coming from the West Coast, going to the East Coast was definitely a culture shock. I went from graduating from high school where I was one of 2 African-American students to going to an HBCU where everyone looks like me. I had to learn quickly that everyone's struggle also looked differently. A lot of times on these campuses, these students are the only one in their family to ever attend college. So the drive is so much different and so much greater for them to complete their degree. Another reason why people choose HBCUs are the homecomings. So you may think of your high school homecoming, you may think of the band, but HBCU homecoming are like no other. So if you have a free time, just type into YouTube HBCUs. It's literally like a football, like a big football game, of course. It's like a family reunion. You get to see everybody, all the alumni, and the spirits of HBCUs, of homecomings are just so high. It's like just a big, like I said, family reunion. And so at Bennett, across the street was North Carolina A&T. And so their homecomings are called GHO, which stands for the greatest homecoming on earth. And so like for the concerts, sometimes they have different artists. And of course, the big things are step shows, because when you think of HBCUs, you also think of Divine Nine, which is Greek sorority and fraternity groups that people pledge, if you're not familiar with that. And so to see those step shows, to see people that you haven't seen in years, homecomings really bring an HBCU together. And that was definitely my favorite part of going to HBCU. One of my favorite parts of going to the HBCU is a homecoming. And then when I think about HBCUs, I also think about the legacy that HBCUs have. So some people that you all may be familiar with is Dr. Martin Luther King. He went to Morehouse. Oprah Winfrey went to Tennessee State. And then our wonderful vice president went to Howard University. So we have a lot of representations of legacy of famous people that attended HBCUs. So I know that might have been a lot. If there are any questions so far before I go on. Okay, so next I kind of wanted to talk about, because I know this is also put on by healthcare. And so I wanted to really pull out these HBCUs that have medical programs. So Howard University has a medical program. Charles R. Drew University has a medical program. Meharry Medical College, Morehouse School of Medicine, and Xavier. These schools all have medical programs, and other HBCUs do have medical tracks, but these are the top HBCUs for medicine. So if you are interested in the pre-med track, these are definitely some schools that you should look into. So before I go any further, I wanted to show, let's see. Give me 1 second. I wanted to show the HBCU map. Let's see. So one thing I didn't realize when I thought about HBCUs is that There are none, there is only one HBCU on the West Coast, and that is in California. And it's really a grad school. It's not for undergrad, and that's the medical school that I talked about. But us being on the West Coast, the closest HBCU to us is in Texas. And that I've always thought that was very interesting. And sometimes that's why here in the Pacific Northwest, we don't really know about HBCUs because they're so far away, right? So I talked about my school. Let's see. So I went to school in North Carolina, and there are a lot of schools, HBCUs in North Carolina. So there is Winston-Salem State. There is Johnson C. Smith. And this is my school, Bennett College in Greensboro, North Carolina. So a lot of times we hear about certain HBCUs, Spelman being one of them. So Spelman is a women's college, and Bennett College is the other women's college that is not talked about. But Bennett is a all women's college, HBCU, and it was actually founded before Spelman. But a lot of times it gets put in the background because it's a smaller college. So I don't know if there's any states that you all are interested in ever moving to, but I can put this website in the chat so you can just view some of these schools and what they're known for. I try to use this tool for my students a lot because they may say, I want to move to Georgia and I want to go to HBCU. So what HBCUs are there? And so they use this map as a tool to figure out what fits them. So because I have 10 minutes left, I want to just touch on UNCF and what Portfolio Project is. So UNCF is a nonprofit organization, and we fund those 37 HBCUs that I talked about. But here in the Pacific Northwest, we focus on 11th and 12th graders going through the college application process. So because just like the map I showed you, there are no HBCUs over here. So we decided in our Seattle office that we had to focus on getting students to school. And that's regardless if it's an HBCU or just college in general, or a trade school, or even community college. So let me pull my PowerPoint back up here. So UNCF Portfolio Project is an 11-week program helping 11th and 12th graders through the college application process. So I know we have a senior on here, we have a junior on here, and a sophomore on here, which is absolutely great. This year, we were able to make our program virtual. So all, not just students in the Pacific Northwest was able to participate, but students from across the world was able to participate this year in our program. So within the 11 weeks, you are paired with a mentor. Here's our curriculum right here. So in the 11 weeks, we cover college admin, we cover our college essay, we talk about financial aid, we pair you with scholarships, and we also do ACT prep. So this is a very rigorous 11 weeks, but by the end of the program, you have all the information you need in order to turn into your colleges and your universities that you want to apply to. So each student walks away with a portfolio that has all the items that they need to apply to their schools. Also, once you complete the program, you are eligible for our scholarship. So actually next week, I have 2 students that will be receiving a 4-year scholarship because they completed our program, and we have a partnership with Nike, And so they awarded 2 of my students with full rides. So that's just one of the benefits of being in our program and completing our program. Every year, like I said, we give scholarships. And so if you complete the program, you're eligible for a scholarship. So in order to complete portfolio project, here are the graduation requirements. So we do a cover letter, transcript, letter of rec, final college essay. We do our honors, ACT, SAT prep. Those scores were waived this year because of COVID. They'll probably be waived next year as well. But we still provide our students with prep. And then they had to submit scholarship applications, a college application, and at the end of the program, they also do a presentation. So I have been with UNCF Portfolio Project for 2 years. And I started out as a mentor first, and I was able to see 3 of my students get accepted to their dream college and universities and also receive scholarships. This program has benefited so many students across the Pacific Northwest. And it's just, we put this program in place because a lot of times when it's time to apply for colleges, we get intimidated. And a lot of our students aren't applying for schools because they may not have the time, they may not have the resources. And so that's what UNCF Portfolio Project wants to provide for you. We want to give you an opportunity to make sure you have everything you need to go to the schools that you are interested in. So with that, are there any additional questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So can college students also apply for this program?
So college students can apply to be a mentor, and college students can apply for UNCF scholarships. If you have not applied to your school yet, but you're out of high school, but you're still trying to apply for colleges, we will definitely accept you into our program because you're still eligible, you're still trying to do the college process. But if you're already enrolled, we don't have anything for that yet, but if you are still seeking higher education, need help with the college application process, you are eligible for the program. Did that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
So I saw some things in the chat. I saw someone said that they hadn't heard about a HBCU. So I'm so glad that we were able to talk about that today, and hopefully you all can share it with other people. And please Google and look on YouTube and further your research. You know, there are all the majors and all the minors, they have them at HBCUs as well, but you have to do your research to make sure that that school, you know, fits you. I can't hear you.
Did you pick any other universities that you were thinking about or considering other HBCUs in your journey, or was Bennett the only HBCU that you considered?
Oh, great question. So I was telling them earlier that my dad always drilled us about HBCUs, my brother and I, to make sure that we knew what they were. And my older cousins, which, you know, always supposed to be the example, 2 of them went to HBCU and they only lasted a week, literally a week, both of them. And they're both from Seattle. And it was just that culture shock experience. And that's not to scare anyone on here, but you just really have to do your research and you have to know what you're ready for. If you're used to being at home and you believe that you're homebody and maybe, you know, you won't be good with getting away from your parents right away, you got to consider that HBCUs also have grad programs. So maybe you stay at home for undergrad, and then for grad school, you can try HBCU. Or maybe you need to stay at home, and then in 2 years, you can try another college, university, or HBCU. So for me, I knew my personality. I was ready to get away. So like I said, I knew the main HBCUs, Howard, Hampton, Spelman, but I got accepted to Bennett College at a college fair at my church, and I knew nothing about it. And I was literally just stepping out on faith, heard about it, and gave it a try. And I was telling them earlier, I actually had to take a year off and come home and then try it again. And, you know, everyone's journey is completely different. And a lot of times we are pressured into certain things and certain avenues, but we just have to really figure it out. And the main thing that I can advise is that you just don't give up, that you just continue to pursue your dreams, write them down. And no matter what life obstacle you may get hit with, just continue with your goals. That would be my biggest advice. And I am thinking about an HBCU for grad school. I kind of wish I would have just done it right after school, but you know, life. But I am considering, so I'm able to explore another HBCU. So yes.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're now at 4 o'clock. So students, I guess, mentioned in the chat, if you can, please fill out the survey. That'll help everybody kind of get an idea of how they can improve, what things went really well, and it'll just be valuable for everybody. So if you guys could do that, we really appreciate it. Outside of that, I believe there's a college fair that's starting. Once you guys go back to the main room, there should be a link directly there. Outside of that, thank you guys for coming and joining us, and hopefully you were able to take something away. Please join and thank Dallas for helping us out and giving us this information. Outside of that, you guys are free to go.
Thank you. And I should have put my contact information in, but if you want to learn more about UNCF, just type in UNCF Seattle and all my information will be there, and portfolio project information will be there. So it's UNCF Seattle.
Yeah, and Dallas, if you want to type in your contact information in the chat, we're also going to save that so students can find it there as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.